Hey everyone! Time to sit back and enjoy a brand new story. In this episode, we delve into the depths of voodoo and dark magic. However, and this is a serious warning, do not replicate any of the items, rituals, or chants contained in this story at home, even if you are of the opinion that it's all a bunch of baloney. This story is based on real events, and what happened to Jenna could very well happen to you also, so rather stay safe than sorry. Again, a reminder that all profits generated from the monetization of this channel goes to helping destitute pups. So we want to ask you nicely to please assist us with this drive by simply subscribing to the channel, liking the video, and listening to the story all the way to the end. And if you don't have time to listen to the end, or you are just not that interested, simply let the video play till the end while you carry on with your day. These actions help us use the YouTube algorithm to generate as much income for this desperate cause as possible. Now let's get right into this incredible story. Jenna Parker and Aaron Collins first crossed paths during a crisp autumn afternoon at the University of Charleston. Jenna, a journalism major with a zeal for uncovering hidden truths, found herself captivated by Aaron's quiet, intellectual demeanor. Aaron, studying literature with a penchant for classic novels and poetry, was intrigued by Jenna's vibrant energy and fresh perspectives. Their initial connection was magnetic, a blend of intellectual curiosity and mutual admiration that felt destined to blossom into something significant. In the early days of their relationship, everything seemed to fall into place seamlessly. Their conversations were deep and stimulating, often spanning late into the night over coffee and textbooks. Jenna admired Aaron's thoughtful insights into literature, while Aaron found Jenna's enthusiasm and unique viewpoints refreshing. Their bond, marked by intense intellectual exchanges and a mutual appreciation for each other's quirks, seemed unbreakable. As the seasons changed, however, the relationship began to shift. Aaron, who had once been open and emotionally available, started to close off. His behavior grew increasingly secretive, creating an emotional chasm between them. What had once been a source of joy and comfort now became a growing source of discomfort and confusion for Jenna. Late nights at the library, which had once been endearing, now felt like excuses. Aaron's phone was always face down, his private conversations increasingly hidden from view. Jenna's attempts to engage him in open dialogue were met with evasive answers and vague reassurances. The growing distance was palpable. Jenna began to notice the subtle signs of Aaron's detachment, unexplained absences, furtive glances at his phone, and a reluctance to introduce her to his new friends. Despite her efforts to address her concerns, Aaron's responses were dismissive, brushing off her worries as mere overreactions. The emotional connection they had once shared was slowly eroding, replaced by a silent and widening gulf. What had been a relationship full of warmth and mutual understanding had become one marked by coldness and secrecy. The turning point in Jenna and Aaron's relationship came on a stormy evening that seemed to mirror Jenna's tumultuous emotions. Rain beat relentlessly against her apartment windows, creating a backdrop of relentless noise as Jenna began sorting through Aaron's belongings. She had intended to return his things, but a gnawing curiosity led her to examine his phone, which he had left behind on a cluttered desk. Unlocking the phone was surprisingly easy. Aaron's passcode had always been something simple and memorable. What she discovered, however, was far from simple. The phone was filled with explicit text messages that revealed Aaron's secret affair with someone Jenna had once considered a friend. Each message was a stark revelation of betrayal, confirming Jenna's worst fears and shattering the illusion of trust she had once held dear. The emotional impact was immediate and profound. Jenna's heart raced, her mind reeling with the weight of the revelation. She tried to rationalize the messages, hoping that they might be a misunderstanding or a cruel joke. But the more she read, the clearer it became that Aaron had been unfaithful, that he had betrayed her trust in the most intimate way possible. In the wake of this discovery, Jenna's emotional state rapidly deteriorated. Her initial reaction was a mixture of shock and disbelief, unable to comprehend how the person she had loved so deeply could cause her such profound pain. The sense of betrayal was overwhelming, and she found herself oscillating between denial and a fierce, consuming anger. Determined to confront Aaron, Jenna arranged a meeting. The confrontation was fraught with emotion, a clash of raw feelings and unspoken hurt. Aaron's response to Jenna's accusations was shockingly cold and indifferent. He offered no apologies, no explanations, only a dismissive attitude that left Jenna feeling even more isolated and abandoned. The argument ended with Aaron walking out of her life, leaving Jenna with a heartbroken void that seemed impossible to fill. In the days following their final confrontation, Jenna's emotional turmoil deepened. The initial shock gave way to a profound sense of despair. Her mind was consumed by thoughts of revenge, a dark desire to make Aaron suffer as she had suffered. The idea of seeking retribution through any means necessary began to take root, driven by a potent mix of anger, heartbreak, and a desperate need for closure. Almost instantly, Jenna began exploring dark remedies with a curiosity that had long lingered on the periphery of her interests. Her distant fascination with the occult, once a casual curiosity, evolved into an obsessive pursuit. She delved into old books at the university library, explored online forums, and sought out any information she could find about voodoo and its practices. Eventually, Jenna's research led her to a small, enigmatic shop on the outskirts of town. The shop, owned by Marie Leclerc, a practitioner of voodoo, was filled with an array of mystical artifacts and the faint, lingering scent of incense. Marie, with her deep-set eyes and an aura of mystery, seemed to possess a knowledge that transcended the ordinary. At their very first meeting, Marie listened intently as Jenna recounted her story. There was a mix of empathy and cautious interest in Marie's demeanor, as she agreed to guide Jenna through a ritual that would promise Jenna the retribution she now almost feverishly sought. The process required meticulous preparation and a collection of specific materials, each imbued with its own significance and power. Jenna had to embark on a quest to gather the necessary materials for the ritual. Her search led her through various parts of the city, including a visit to a cemetery after dark. There, she collected items such as a lock of Aaron's hair, which she had secretly taken from a brush he had left behind, dried herbs, and a vial of black oil. She also had to fashion a handmade doll, which Jenna crafted herself, intending it to symbolize Aaron. The process of gathering these materials was both exhausting and intense. Jenna's fixation on the occult became all-consuming, and she meticulously followed every detail of the ritual instructions provided by Marie. The sense of purpose in her quest for revenge was accompanied by an unsettling awareness of the gravity of her actions. The night of the ritual arrived with an atmosphere thick with anticipation and dread. Jenna's apartment, usually a place of comfort and familiarity, had been transformed into a dimly lit chamber of darkness. The flickering flame of a single black candle cast long, unsettling shadows on the walls. The air was heavy with the mingling scents of myrrh and sulfur, adding to the ritualistic ambiance. Over the past few days, she had collected all the materials and items as Marie instructed. These comprise of the doll or effigy, which would represent the target of the hex, in this case, the ex-boyfriend. It was a small, handmade doll which Marie instructed should be made of cloth and had to include the personal items Jenna had collected from Aaron and the cemetery as part of its makeup. The doll had to be crafted with intention and care, symbolizing the individual in question, Aaron. Some personal items, like the lock of hair, a piece of clothing, a photograph, or a personal belonging of Aaron, the purpose of which would be to strengthen the connection between the doll and the target. A black candle made of black wax, symbolizing protection and the removal of obstacles. Marie advised Jenna that this candle would represent the energy of the hex and it would invoke the desired effect. Black oil or oil of a bromelain, which is a dark aromatic oil used in various magical practices. Jenna purchased it from an occult shop where it was made by infusing oils with herbs associated with protection and curses. This oil would be used to anoint the doll and enhance the power of the ritual. Powdered bones, which Jenna also bought at the same shop she purchased the black oil, and as per Marie's direction, it would be used to symbolize the gravity and permanence of the hex. Dried herbs that would be used to enhance the ritual's potency. For this specific hex, Jenna had to get rue for protection and thistle for causing discomfort. A ceremonial iron dagger with a sharp edge and a handle decorated with symbols that align with voodoo hex spells, along with a small silver bell. The dagger would be used to carve symbols and direct the energy during the ritual, while the bell would be chimed to signify the completion of the ritual and to send out the energy. And finally, incense and sage, which would be burned during the ritual to create a conducive atmosphere during the ceremony and to cleanse the area as part of the closing act of the ceremony. Jenna arranged the materials on a small wooden table in the center of her living room. The doll, representing Aaron, was placed at the heart of the setup, surrounded by dried herbs and a bowl of powdered bones. The vial of black oil was positioned beside the doll, its contents waiting to be used. Jenna's heart pounded as she prepared to begin the ritual, her mind focused on the task at hand. At around 10 o'clock that evening, Marie arrived at Jenna's apartment. They exchanged quick hellos, but Jenna could see that Marie was not there for any lighthearted conversation. So she promptly gestured to Marie to take a place at the small wooden table she had prepared and followed closely behind to take her place on the opposite side from where Marie took her position. The ritual commenced with Jenna lighting the black candle and positioning it at the head of the table. They then exchanged a quick glance at each other. Are you ready? It was time. Marie closed her eyes, her palms placed in a relaxed fashion on her knees facing up, and she started chanting the first verse in Haitian Creole, which was aimed at setting the intention of the ceremony. Esprit faux, tan moen aprel. Strong spirit, hear my call. Moen mande ubini nanrel moen. I ask you to come to my cry. Que ma plen ak face. My heart is full of anger. Moen vleo compran. I want you to understand. Pouvoir sa mapitalize, felipote resulta. The power I wield, make it bring results. Jenna joined in the chanting, as Marie had provided her with all the phrases to memorize for this very occasion. Her voice quivered, but her determination was steadfast. This man is going to pay. With the intent set, it was time to anoint the doll. Following Marie's guidance, Jenna dipped the brush into the black oil and carefully painted the doll's eyes and mouth. The oil was cold and thick, and Jenna felt a chill spread through the room with each stroke. The atmosphere grew heavier, and Jenna had a profound sense of being watched by an unseen presence. Suwok lam ap mete lo. On this doll I place my oil. Pu au santi ke mwen, for you to feel my heart. Vela konen, let it be known. Kol map vir, my anger turns. Fos mwen ap monte, my strength rises. Se pusa amache, may this work. Awi likle, you see it clear. Marie gestured for Jenna to take the dagger and again closed her eyes. Jenna picked up the small iron dagger and started to trace ceremonial patterns all over the doll, each movement deliberate and precise. Jenna felt a shiver as she worked, the atmosphere in the room growing increasingly tense. Zekel, map fe, lightning I draw, ambalalin nan beneath the moon, chakmak each mark, chak senbol each symbol, apote influence. Will carry influence. Pouvoir moen nan men moen, my power in my hands. Soti nan kema, from my heart. Pusa fet, for this to work. Pusa reales, for this to come true. By this time, Jenna was fully entranced in the moment. Her entire focus was on the doll and the sound of Marie's voice. She could feel the energy she was imparting into the doll leave her body, and her mind was completely blank from any other thoughts. She could almost imagine Aaron sitting up straight with an expression of sheer shock and terror at that very moment. Again, Marie moved her hand in Jenna's direction, gesturing for her to take the powdered bones and herbs and sprinkle them over the doll. Only this time she did so without opening her eyes. In fact, her rhythm increased as she started to sway her upper body in a tiny circular motion, her core vibrating ever so slightly. Osak zeb, bones and herbs. Map gaya sutasaa. I scatter on this ground. Chak gren, each grain. Chak pecan, each thorn. Potamail, brings misfortune. Chechefemal, seek to harm. Potadule, bring pain. Nan non sae, in this name. Nan sosa'a, in this spell. Sepuli mache, may it succeed. Each sprinkle of the powdered bones and dried herbs intensified Jenna's anxiety. The ritual seemed to take on a life of its own. The room filled with an oppressive, almost tangible energy. For a moment, the two women sat in silence. The only sound was the faint hum coming from Marie. Jenna's mind again drifted to Aaron, and she felt a wave of excitement and satisfaction wash over her at the prospect of what he was about to endure. With the air saturated with the smell of incense, Marie shifted her body and bowed her head to signal the next phase of the ritual. The final nail now had to be driven into the proverbial coffin of the man called Aaron. As Jenna shifted her position as well, in her case to get into a more comfortable sitting position, Marie started with the next incantation that formed part of this ceremony. Esprit de la nuit, spirit of the night, reponak apel mwen, answer my call. Fekole mavinfo, make my anger strong. Kemplen, fill my heart, parfe ndoae, by the dark, parfosae, by this force. Keuap fimal, may your heart suffer. Payuap kraza, may your feet break. The final act was to ring a small silver bell 3 times, its chime resonating with a chilling finality that felt like a sealing of the curse's power. Marie took a deep, long breath, held it for a number of seconds, and slowly exhaled through her teeth, making an eerie hissing sound that sounded almost menacing. Her whole body started to vibrate as she rolled her head anti-clockwise 6 times before starting the final part of the ritual. Sonti with the bell's chime. Felisoti, let it be released. Tout pouvoir, all power. Tout kol, all anger. Realize, realized. Sa'afet, this is done. Sa'akuvri, this is covered. Nan non lalin nan, in the name of the moon. Nan non soa, in the name of the spell. Sepuli feli, may it be so. It was done. Jenna successfully accomplished what she had so desperately craved, and in a way she felt strangely empowered and satisfied with her work. This man would pay for what he did to her, of that she had no doubt. Marie wasted no time. Jenna was still in the process of getting up from the table when Marie had already opened the front door. In a quick glance back at Jenna, she offered a reassuring nod and disappeared out the door. Jenna did not make much of it, as she argued that Marie was a very spiritual human being, with connections far beyond what she, Jenna could ever comprehend, and therefore most probably did not make small talk with mere mortals like herself, unless absolutely essential. After Marie had closed the door behind her and disappeared into the night, Jenna sat on her couch next to the hex table for more than an hour, going over the events in her mind and building images of how Aaron's life was going to take a turn for the worse. She truly felt satisfied with what she had accomplished with the ritual, and was even excited to see Aaron the next day. In fact, she even started to think up a strategy on how she would keep an eye on him to witness his downward spiral firsthand. In the days following the ritual, Jenna experienced a peculiar sense of satisfaction, as though she had regained a measure of control over her life. The first signs of the curse's impact were subtle but disturbing. Jenna began to hear whispered voices in the silence of the night, and the temperature in her apartment would drop inexplicably. Objects seemed to move on their own, books shifting on shelves, lights flickering erratically. Jenna attempted to rationalize these occurrences, attributing them to faulty wiring or her own overactive imagination. Despite her efforts to dismiss the events as coincidences, the growing sense of dread was undeniable. Jenna found herself reflecting on her life before the ritual, comparing her previous contentment with the current state of fear and uncertainty. The weight of her actions felt like a tangible burden, and she struggled to reconcile her past happiness with her present suffering. Her attempts to return to normalcy were met with increasing difficulty. The once familiar space of her apartment now seemed foreign and hostile. The whispers grew more frequent, and the cold drafts more persistent. Jenna's unease deepened as she realized that the presence in her apartment was not going away. As the days turned into weeks, the disturbances in Jenna's apartment escalated into more vivid and frightening encounters. The shadowy figures that had once been mere glimpses in mirrors became more distinct and menacing. Objects were violently thrown across the room, and the air seemed to be perpetually heavy with a sense of malevolence. Jenna's nights were plagued by nightmares that left her waking in cold sweats, her mind racing with terror. Sleep paralysis became a frequent occurrence, leaving her immobilized and paralyzed with fear as she felt an unseen presence looming over her. The haunting grew more intense, and Jenna's physical and mental health began to deteriorate rapidly. In a desperate bid for answers, Jenna reached out to Aaron, hoping to find out if he was experiencing any similar disturbances. Her attempts to contact him were met with indifference and a lack of concern. Aaron's refusal to acknowledge the situation only deepened Jenna's sense of isolation and despair. Her isolation extended beyond her interactions with Aaron. Friends and family began to notice Jenna's erratic behavior and growing paranoia. Her relationships began to fray as she withdrew from those around her, consumed by the haunting presence in her apartment. The once strong emotional support network that had once been a source of comfort for Jenna was now strained to the breaking point. The turning point came after a particularly terrifying encounter. Jenna had been awakened in the middle of the night by a shadowy figure that seemed to materialize directly in front of her. The encounter left her feeling more terrified than ever, and she knew she needed help. Desperate and exhausted, Jenna again turned to Marie Leclerc for assistance. As before, Marie's place was shrouded in an air of mysticism, with incense burning and the soft glow of candles casting long shadows on the walls. The spiritual healer listened carefully as Jenna recounted her experiences, her face a mask of concern and empathy. Marie performed a cleansing ritual, filling the room with the fragrant smoke of burning sage and chanting in an ancient language that Jenna could not understand. The ritual was intense, and Jenna felt a temporary sense of relief as the smoke enveloped her. Marie's warnings about the consequences of dabbling in dark magic echoed in Jenna's mind, and she left with a heavy heart, the sense of impending doom lingering despite the temporary respite. The encounter with Marie provided Jenna with some relief, but the haunting presence in her apartment remained. Jenna felt a sense of foreboding that refused to dissipate. The warnings from Marie seemed to take on a new meaning as Jenna struggled to come to terms with the consequences of her actions. Determined to escape the malevolent presence that had taken over her life, Jenna made the difficult decision to leave her apartment. Packing up her belongings was a physically and emotionally exhausting process. Jenna's departure was marked by a mixture of relief and lingering dread. As Jenna settled into a new apartment, she hoped that the change in environment would break the hold of the curse. However, the sense of unease persisted. The new space, while offering a fresh start, was still tainted by the lingering effects of her actions. A final, ambiguous encounter, a fleeting glimpse of a shadowy figure in her new apartment, left Jenna with an unsettling sense that the haunting might not be entirely over. The shadows of her past seemed to follow her, a somber reminder of the consequences of seeking revenge through dark means. Jenna's final reflections were a poignant reminder of the perils of wielding dark forces. Aaron never suffered any ill effects from the ritual, but for Jenna, the quest for retribution had come at a tremendous personal cost, and the lingering presence of the curse served as a constant reminder of the dangers of delving into the unknown. Jenna's journey had been marked by a profound lesson learned through intense suffering and a deep, lasting sense of consequence. Jenna would eventually be freed from the haunting that entered her life that night, but not after costing her dearly and almost driving her to ending it all at her own hand. And that brings us to the end. Thank you again for joining us. We truly hope you enjoyed the experience. And if you enjoyed this story, subscribe, and check out this story on the screen right now about a truly terrifying experience a man had with a woman he picked up on the side of the road that simply disappeared from his car while he was driving. Stay safe and God bless.